Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. This is Langley Outdoors Academy, and thank you for stopping by. All right, guys, on this morning's episode of Bullet Points, we're going to dive into an article out of the New York Daily News. Now, this is an opinion piece. So, as you know, on Bullet Points, we dive into these opinion pieces, the interviews, and where the left intelligentsia and those that are betters really put their points out there and communicate with each other. Well, this is important because as we've covered pretty much the whole week, the gun control debate on the Supreme Court level from New York is all the rage in the leftist circles. They are freaking out. And we've covered a lot of it, how it's kind of a scattered approach. It's all the way from there's going to be Volvos and, cannons and Volvos, tanks on the streets. They're going to have limits on what gun and lethality scores. It's across the board, and this article is no different. But it really shows you, if you look at this in whole, in summation, they're so terrified and so disorganized because mom's coming home, because they've been crossing the line for about 25 years and been doing some pretty naughty activities, and now they're going to get caught because the rules are in place and the Supreme Court is actually acting on their shenanigans. And that is why they are freaking out and bring you an article something like this. I want to hear what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below, and I am going to dive into this with you right now. Shooting ourselves in both feet. As we obsess over the Alec Baldwin accident, the Supreme Court gets set to hear a case that could blow a hole in America's gun safety laws. Not wrong, it probably will. In fact, my opinion, this is the little thread that pulls the whole sweater over about 25 to 50 years of gun control in major liberal cities. This is important, but the author here is upset because, well, all the mainstream media seems to be talking about is an Alec Baldwin accident on set, while the real world, we're actually getting our gun rights back. Listen to what he says here, and this is important because it's completely scattered. As the U.S. Supreme Court gets ready to hear arguments Wednesday in its most consequential gun case in more than a decade, which it is, American popular culture focuses not only on the ways that a ruling might forever undermine anti-violence efforts in cities like New York, Chicago, Boston, and Los Angeles, but on a firearm safety on a movie set. So the author is pissed about this, right? Let me translate out what he just said. American popular culture, left-wing mainstream medias, they're ignoring the concept they're putting on the movie set of the Alec Baldwin accident. This author's upset about it. Anti-violence efforts in cities like New York, Chicago, Boston, and Los Angeles. That is gun control in the main leftist liberal cities. That's what that translates to. Now keep in mind, this guy's still upset because we're talking about the Alec Baldwin incident, not the real-world implications of a Supreme Court case. As anti-crime advocate, by the way, what makes you an advocate? Do we have to have an advocate for everything? I thought everyone was anti-crime. Whatever. Anti-crime advocate Richard Aborn and former NYPD and LAPD Commissioner Bill Bratton put it in the Daily News. At the very moment New York is in the midst of a crisis of violent gun crime, keep that in mind, violent gun crime, the very last thing we need is more guns in our city and no control over who is permitted to carry concealed. That's not what the case is. That's a complete fabrication of what the case actually is. What it really is that the fact that New York decides who can and can't get a permit because they don't want guns, and you have to prove the fact that you can have the right that you already have. That's the whole point. It's not about Constitution carry. It's not about the fact that anyone can have a gun. It's not getting rid of background checks or anything like that. It's literally just saying, states, you can't discern this based on your own standards. It's really what the case is in a very high-level nutshell, right? But keep that in mind. New York is in the midst of a crisis of violent gun crime. Listen to what the author says next. New York, too, is on the whole much safer from gunfire than many surrounding U.S. cities because of its gun laws. Crisis of gun crime. Oh, on the whole, we're better. It gets better. The years of the pandemic aside, gun-related injuries and deaths have been falling in New York City for the past decade. Okay, so they went from the 90s and the 80s to a high peak. They fall into a valley here in about the 2000s, 2010s. They spike again in the pandemic, and the author goes, well, ignore the 18 months that we've been trying to use this gun crime as a reason to take more of your rights away. That's not important because as a whole, New York gun control works. It's been on a downward trend. Don't mind the fact that we've been completely advocating for gun rights stealing because of the rise in violent crime from guns, but that's not a thing right now because I'm trying to prove a different point. They aren't going to get away with this crap as we continue because we are making a difference. You are making a difference. It defies logic that the Supreme Court would not recognize this trajectory. Spare cities like New York a similar fate, talking about Kansas earlier in the article. Okay, here's the thing. The Supreme Court's job is not to determine statistics and analytics and crime strategy. The Supreme Court's job is to see when the leftist gun controllers have crossed over the Second Amendment. You are violating a right of the citizens of this amazing nation. That's where you screwed up. That's why mom is coming home, and that's why you're about to get smacked around, because for the last 25 years, you've been stepping and trotting all over the fact that we have rights to arm ourselves in this country, and just because you haven't been caught and mom hadn't come home yet doesn't mean you were in the right. Even though you thought this was the norm, you've now been slapped around, and you realize that mom's going to come home, and there's flour all over the kitchen, and there's mud on the carpet, and you don't know what to do. And that's what I've got for you guys today on the bullet points. I will see you tonight in the 9 p.m. segment. This is Braden, signing out.